Welcome back to another edition of Coast to Coast Sports, the only show for the fans, by the fans. Happy early Valentine's Day, everybody. I know we got some female listeners out there looking for some honeys, I don't know, but my Valentine is obviously my grandma. She sent me this all the way back home in Jersey. I love you, Grandma. Might be eating some of these throughout the show. But I was trying to think of some fun Valentine's Day themed things to do for today's show. And I know I promised you're going to start talking about basketball. I still haven't gotten all my NFL juices out yet, There's a lot to talk about still to come. The offseason is now underway. The NFL actually permitted all 30 stadiums in the NFL to open for COVID vaccination sites, which is good. Hopefully, by the next season, we'll have fans at the games again, and that should be fun to watch. I definitely want to check out SoFi Stadium here in California, but we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But thinking of all the Valentine's Day themed things I can do, I remember last Valentine's Day, I was at Carnival with my buddies, and we were on a Ferris wheel. I know it was a little weird, but we had a good time. And I thought of something, a lot of people go to carnivals on Valentine's Day. So this is the NFL Offseason Carnival. And what better ride to start off with is with a carousel. And, we talk about the coaching carousel all the time. That's over with. Let's do the quarterback carousel. And I had to go over to the whiteboard with this one. Taped it before the show started. Let's check it out, what I think's going on. So this year's quarterback market's going to be very interesting. And it's not because there's a lot of big names that are available in the free agency market. It's all because this guy, Deshaun Watson, demanded a trade. And because of that, he's a top 10 quarterback. Obviously, if you don't have a top 10 quarterback, you're going to be looking to improve. So all these teams now are being said by their fans that they want Deshaun Watson. We can move off of the guy we have no matter who he is. And a lot of these guys on this list are in jeopardy of that happening. And we're going to break down this year's quarterback carousel because it's going to be an interesting one. And I think it's going to be a little less fun and entertaining as many people are projecting it to be. And we're going to start off with Carson Wentz. I said last week he should be traded within the next week or two. I think he ends up in Indianapolis. He'll be a Colt. We already explained why on Tuesday. He's going to get reunited with Frank Reich. It's a match made in heaven. Carson Wentz was a Super Bowl. They won the Super Bowl that year, and Carson Wentz was really an MVP candidate. So I think when you match those two guys up together, Indianapolis just made the playoffs. They're a very good team. And with that, though, Carson Wentz with the Philadelphia Eagles, they already got their guy in Jalen Hurts. Indy just lost their guy in Phillip Rivers. So this move has no real implications on the rest of the quarterback carousel this year. Now we get into the real offseason, March. Come that time, all these teams are going to start making moves. I think teams like Denver are just going to bring in a veteran like, I don't know, Fitzpatrick maybe, or Gardner Minshew they can make a trade for just because he'll be cheap. I think a team like the Washington football team brings in Cam Newton, or they roll with Alex Smith. Then you got teams like the Patriots who are just going to wait till the draft. We'll talk about them in a minute. But other than that, all these teams have to make decisions on whether or not they want to move on from their quarterback or keep him. And it starts off with San Francisco. I think they keep Jimmy Garoppolo. The man brought them to a Super Bowl, had one of the best records in the league 2 years ago. This year was dealing with injuries to him himself, the defense, the running back core. I don't think they have the need to destroy that team yet. I think they roll with Jimmy G for a couple more years. They just gave him a huge contract a few years back. So that's what I'm thinking. Jimmy G stays. Now we get into the draft. Jacksonville's on the clock. They go Trevor Lawrence. We already know that. But the Jets, on the other hand, they have a lot of options. They can either trade the pick, get Deshaun, They could take Justin Fields or Zach Wilson. I think they're going to go with either Penei Sewell or Devonta Smith and roll with Sam Darnold at quarterback. The guy's still young. We saw what Ryan Tannehill did once he left Adam Gase. I think Sam Darnold's a guy that still has room to improve, but you're not going to dump him and try and waste a pick where you can build your team around that's got a lot of different needs. So you don't have to pay him yet. You can keep him for another year or two, evaluate what he's done, and then maybe you see what we got after we build up the team a little bit more. Then comes pick number 4, and Atlanta's got a decision too. Same thing. They might want to move on from their quarterback, pick up a new guy, fresh start. I think they're going to go with Zach Wilson here. Out of BYU, he's a guy with a very high ceiling, can definitely benefit a team very well. I think he's going to have to sit behind a guy for a year or two, learn the ropes of being an NFL quarterback. And that's why Matt Ryan's name's on the list, because he's going to stay in Atlanta and finish off his career in a few years. Matt Ryan's going to be the perfect mentor for a guy like Zach Wilson. They got a ton of pieces that are going to be there long term, like Calvin Ridley. And what much more can you ask than a guy that's won an MVP, been to a Super Bowl as your mentor? Moving on, I think Detroit at number 7, they're going to stick with Jared Goff. They just traded for him. They have enough picks to really build a team around him. Let's see what they got for a few years. But Carolina, I think, rolls with Justin Fields. And there's another move. I think Justin Fields doesn't want to go to Atlanta because he's going to sit behind Matt Ryan for a year or two. This is a guy that in college transferred to Ohio State from Georgia because he wasn't going to be the starter for a while. I think he's a guy that's ready for the NFL and wants to start. Carolina gives them the best opportunity. I could see Teddy Bridgewater playing like the Fitzpatrick role in Miami this past year, where he played for the first half of the games, played pretty well, and then Justin Fields will come in and take over like Tua did. Now we still have Deshaun Watson. I think the Patriots are going to pick a guy up like Trey Lance or Mac Jones. I think there's definitely other teams out there that could trade up or look to get a guy in that early teens area. But Houston's panicking at this point. They still haven't gotten rid of Deshaun Watson yet. And time's ticking. They're running out of first-round picks. And all of a sudden, ring comes the Chicago Bears. I think they trade the 20th pick, get Deshaun Watson. And to sweeten the deal, Money Mitch Trubisky will go to Houston and be the starter there for a few years. So yeah, there's a lot going on. I think teams like the Texans are going to start panicking a little more with all these people not taking Deshaun Watson. And the more we hear about Deshaun Watson getting traded, the less realistic it is, because we've seen Matt Stafford ask for a trade. He was gone in a week. We've seen Carson Wentz ask for a trade. He's getting shipped out sometime next week as well. Deshaun Watson asked for a trade. The Texans have to be asking for at least like 10 picks or something crazy like that. But it should be interesting to see how it plays out. I think the Jets are a little smarter than they would be to take Deshaun Watson. I think the Patriots are the same way. I don't think they'll give up the future of their rebuild just to get a quarterback and compete right away again. But there are a lot of teams out there that definitely want to win now. And some of the teams that want to finish their rebuild come on strong. So I thought about roller coasters. Instead of a carousel, we're going to get a little more intense now with a roller coaster. And we're going to do that kind of roller coaster with NFL teams, but who's going to be going up and who's going to be going down? And by that I mean, what are their records going to look like from last season to next season? Are they going to be up or are they going to be down? Let's start in the up category with the Dallas Cowboys, because yeah, you can make the argument they went 6-10. They weren't good on defense at all. And even when Dak Prescott was putting up video game numbers, they were still losing. I mean, the only real notable win they had was to the Atlanta Falcons, who choked, as they usually do. But I definitely think Dallas could get it figured out this season. They definitely should be paying Dak. They might franchise tag him one more time just so they don't have to fork over $40 million to him. But they can definitely build in the draft to build up their defense, maybe compete a little bit more. I think they're set at weapons. They got Zeke Elliott, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup all there. That's a very good core for Dak Prescott to compete, who was on pace to break 6,000 yards. That's crazy to me, but a team that's on the way down is the Miami Dolphins. And you look at what's been going on, they aren't so high on Tua, especially after that last regular season game against the Buffalo Bills backups. And I'm in disagreement with the Miami Dolphins fans on Tua. I think Tua's a very special quarterback. I think you guys hit a home run with drafting him. And to give up on him that easily, to waste a bunch of picks and bring in Deshaun Watson just seems crazy to me. But on the other hand, I do notice every time there's a switch at quarterback one year, the next year there's kind of like a drop off in production. It's kind of like teams have figured out that guy and they can start to see what they can do to defend against him, how he works. There's a lot more film on him. When Tua came in, there wasn't film on him for half a year, like a full year basically, going back to his college days when he was injured. And I don't know what else they really plan to do around that team. They could bring in another receiver. They could bring in maybe a better running back than Myles Gaskin. But other than that, they're going to have a much tougher schedule this season. Now that they were the second best team in the AFC East, they're going to play the second best teams in the other divisions as well. I don't think 10-6 is a little realistic for them. Back to the up column, I think Detroit's got something special in Jared Goff and Dan Campbell. I think that's going to be a great pairing. I think Dan Campbell's a little more intense than Jared Goff is. But I think Dan Campbell's a guy that's going to rally his troops. You talk about Robert Saleh being a very enthusiastic head coach. Go back and watch Dan Campbell's press conference. He was saying they're going to rip the heads off their opponents and going crazy, everything. But they finished 5-11 last year. I think there was just a lot going on. Matt Patricia wasn't the best offensive-minded coach. I can't wait to see what Dan Campbell does in Detroit with Jared Goff now, a younger quarterback. And they got some weapons too. They got Kenny Golladay obviously coming back. DeAndre Swift is pretty special in the backfield. Plus that defense isn't the worst in the world. They got some pretty good guys on there as well. They finished 5-11. I can see them maybe getting another win or two. But a team who got a win or two that really shouldn't have last year was the Las Vegas Raiders. And they were pretty much the surprise team of the year, finishing 8-8. Nobody really expected that. Then you look back and see who their games were. They upset the Kansas City Chiefs. And they beat the Jets on a last-second Hail Mary throw that might have been the worst defense in the history of the league. So 8-8 goes to 6-10 with those two games not going their way. And I look at the Las Vegas team and the organization, and there's a lot of guys on the hot seat right now. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. John Gruden's definitely on the hot seat. He's been there since day one. And now Derek Carr is the third best quarterback in his division. You got Patrick Mahomes, who's the best quarterback in the league. You have Justin Herbert, who just won Rookie of the Year. Drew Lock's not there, but maybe Denver even brings in a better quarterback. So you're looking at having the worst quarterback in your division and maybe the worst coach. We'll have to see how the new coaches do, but Las Vegas could be in trouble come next season. And then again, we talked about them in the quarterback carousel. Chicago is definitely a team that should finish higher than they did last year. I think they definitely are going to make an upgraded quarterback, whether or not it be Deshaun Watson. They're going to make an upgrade. They've still got a phenomenal defense. I don't know if they'll have Allen Robinson, but there's a lot of good weapons in the draft that they could build around. David Montgomery is special as well. I can see this team finishing and competing with the Packers depending on who they pick up in the draft. But a team that really was competing and was a playoff team last season, the New Orleans Saints are in big trouble. And when I talk about teams like the Raiders or the Miami Dolphins, New Orleans could have the biggest drop-off in terms of wins from this season to last season in the NFL. New Orleans lost their star quarterback in Drew Brees. They are $100 million over the cap space. And they got uncertainty at quarterback, and it's not like they can go pay somebody. They could either bring back Jameis Winston, who started one game and then Sean Payton benched him for Taysom Hill. Or you could roll with Taysom Hill, who didn't play half bad, but he played arguably some of the worst defenses in the league during the stretch where Drew Brees was out. And like Lamar Jackson, teams will start to figure him out. So they're going to have to start getting rid of some guys, clearing some cap room eventually, or they're going to be in big trouble. But they're definitely going to be a team that I'd look to rebuild. I think Sean Payton might want to find a new job. I don't think they'll keep him around for that long. I think you just need a whole culture change out in New Orleans. You guys did well. You got a Super Bowl out of Drew Brees, but then again, you guys choke at the playoffs. So I think there's time for a new regime here in New Orleans. Carolina, on the other hand, they were without Christian McCaffrey for most of the season. I think he played only 3 games. But they were able to finish 5-11. And I thought Teddy Bridgewater was a very suitable quarterback. I said in the carousel that they are going to go with Justin Fields. And reason being, I think he's probably the second best quarterback and he's going to be available. And that's why Carolina's going to make the move. If for some reason Justin Fields goes to Atlanta and Zach Wilson's available, I think they stick with Teddy Bridgewater. And give Teddy Bridgewater Christian McCaffrey, who now we know they don't have to rely on as much. Matt Rule and Joe Brady have kind of figured out how to share the wealth to DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel a little bit. I think they're going to have a pretty solid year. And with New Orleans falling off, Atlanta falling off maybe a little bit, I could see them maybe competing with Tampa for a playoff spot even. And finally, the last team I have going down. Sorry, we're going to end on a low note, but it is Valentine's Day, so I'll probably cheer you up a little bit afterwards. Got my red shirt on and everything. But this team's far from red, their colors. They're dark blue and green. The Seattle Seahawks. This was a team that halfway through the year had the MVP, Russell Wilson. They got DK Metcalf. They got Tyler Lockett. They have an atrocious defense. And Russell Wilson, I don't know what happened to him in the second half and that playoff game. He just didn't look the same in the second half of the year. That scares me a little bit because he's getting up there in age. He's in his 30s now. The Los Angeles Rams are making moves to compete for a Super Bowl. San Francisco, I said, should be healthy. And Arizona is one of the teams on the come-up. So I look at Seattle. I see this team maybe stumbling a little bit, going to the bottom of the barrel. They won the division last year by the skin of their teeth. I think this year Los Angeles wins it. And keep an eye on San Francisco and Arizona to really make that the most competitive division in football. But that's going to do it for me. We got a 3-day weekend actually coming up. I didn't even realize that until yesterday, where we got President's Day on Monday. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, no school. Everyone have a good time. Sunday, go out and celebrate Valentine's Day with whoever you want. But that's going to do it for me. I hope you all have a safe and healthy and very happy Valentine's Day. And from Coast to Coast Sports, you're all my Valentines. You guys are great supporters. I don't know what I would do without you, but make sure you share the YouTube, share the Instagram, and we're going to keep this thing growing. But with that said, I'm Michael Fiumefreddo signing off of Coast to Coast Sports, the only show for the fans, by the fans.